Hi everyone, I'm Jane Straub with Chick Borderline Resource Center, and we have been doing a story on Fridays. This is our second story time. Just wanted to thank you for participating. We know that a lot of you are home and stuck at home, and we're hoping this is just a way to provide some entertainment and maybe a story that has a fun lesson to it. So the book that I am going to read to you today is called Enemy Pie, and the author is Derek Munson. The illustrator is Tara Callahan King. I just would like to tell you that the way that I read stories is I usually will read the story and then show you the pictures. I know that some people have the book up as they read it, but that is the way that I will do it. We are trying to incorporate some of these stories to align with some of the 11 Virginia traits, like be kind, be a good sport, be a good friend, be generous, be joyful. So I think perhaps Enemy Pie may end up being a story about being a good friend, but we're going to have to see how it ends. So again, thank you for joining us. And today our book is called Enemy Pie. It should have been the perfect summer. My dad helped me build a tree house in our backyard, and my sister was away at camp for 3 whole weeks. I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been the perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood, right next door to my best friend, Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. He struck me out in a baseball game. He had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't even invited, but my best friend Stanley was. Jeremy Ross was the one and only person on my enemy list. I never even had an enemy list until Jeremy moved into the neighborhood. But as soon as he came along, I needed one, and I hung it up in my treehouse where Jeremy Ross was not allowed to go. My dad, he understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew of a way to get rid of them. I asked him to tell me how. Tell you how? I'll show you how, he said. And he pulled a really old recipe box off the kitchen shelf. And inside, there was a worn out scrap of paper with faded writing on it. Dad held it up and he squinted at it. Enemy pie, he said, satisfied. You may be wondering, what exactly is in enemy pie? Well, I was wondering too, but Dad said the recipe was so secret, he couldn't even tell me. I decided it must be magic. I begged him, tell me something, anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. Now, of course, this got my mind working. What kinds of things, disgusting things, would I put into a pie for an enemy? I brought Dad some weeds from the garden. He just shook his head. I brought him some earthworms and some rocks. He didn't think he'd need those. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing on all day. He gave it right back to me. I went out to play alone. I shot basketballs till my ball got stuck on the roof. I threw a boomerang, but it never came back to me. And all the while, I listened to the sounds of my dad chopping and stirring and blending the ingredients of enemy pie. This was going to be a great summer after all. Enemy pie was going to be awful. I tried to imagine how horrible it would smell, or worse yet, what it would look like. But when I was in the backyard looking for ladybugs, I smelled something really, really, really good. And as far as I could tell, it was coming from our kitchen. I was a bit confused. I went in to ask Dad what was wrong. Enemy pie shouldn't smell this good. But Dad, he's smart. He said, if enemy pie smelled bad, your enemy would never eat it. Oh, I could tell Dad had made enemy pie before. The buzzer rang. Dad put on his oven mitts and he pulled the pie out of the oven. It looked like plain old pie. It looked good enough to eat. I was a bit confused. Oh, now I was catching on. But still, I didn't really know how enemy pie worked. What exactly did it do to enemies? Maybe it made their hair fall out, or it made their breasts stinky. Maybe it made bullies cry. I looked at Dad, but he was no help. He would not tell me a thing. But while the pie cooled, he filled me in on my job. He talked quietly. There is one part of enemy pie that I cannot do. In order for it to work, you have to spend one whole day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to him. It was not easy, but that was the only way that enemy pie can work. Are you sure you want to go through with this? My dad asked. Of course I was. It sounded horrible. It was scary, but it was worth a try. All I had to do was spend one day with Jeremy Ross, and he'd be out of my hair for the rest of my life. I rode my bike to his house, and I knocked on his door. When Jeremy opened the door, he looked surprised. He stood on the other side, and he just stared at me. He waited for me to say something. I was nervous. Can you play? I asked. He looked confused. I'll go ask my mom. He came back with his shoes, and his mom walked around the corner to say hello. You boys stay out of trouble, she said. We rode bikes for a while, and we played on the trampoline. Then we made some water balloons and threw them at the neighborhood girls, but we missed. Jeremy's mom made us lunch, and after lunch, we went over to my house. It was strange, but I was kind of having fun with my enemy. He almost seemed nice. But of course, I couldn't tell that to Dad because he has been working so hard making enemy pie. Jeremy Ross liked my basketball hoop. He said he wished he had a basketball hoop, but they didn't have room for one. I let him win a game just to be nice. Jeremy Ross, he knew how to throw a boomerang. He threw it and it came right back to him. I threw it and it went over my house and into the backyard. When we climbed over the fence to find it, the first thing Jeremy noticed was my treehouse. My treehouse was my treehouse. I was the boss. If my sister wanted in, I didn't have to let her. If my dad wanted in, I didn't have to let him in. And if Jeremy Ross wanted in, oh, can we go in it? Can we go in it? Jeremy asked. Oh, I knew he was going to ask me that. But he was the one person, the only person on my enemy list. And enemies are not allowed in my treehouse. But he did teach me how to throw a boomerang. And he did have me over for lunch. And he did let me play on his trampoline. Oh, he was not being a very good enemy. Okay, I said, but hold on. I climbed up ahead of him and I tore the enemy list off the wall. I had a checkerboard and some cards in the treehouse, and we played until my dad called us down for dinner. We pretended we didn't hear him, and when he came up to get us, we tried to hide from him. But he found us. Dad made us macaroni and cheese for dinner, my favorite. It was Jeremy's favorite too. Maybe Jeremy Ross wasn't so bad after all. I was beginning to think that maybe we should just forget about the enemy pie. But sure enough, after dinner, Dad brought out the pie. I watched as he cut it into 8 thick slices. Dad, I said, sure is nice having you in the neighborhood. I was trying to get his attention and trying to tell him that Jeremy Ross was no longer my enemy. But Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was only pretending. Dad dished up 3 plates side by side with big pieces of pie and giant scoops of ice cream. He passed one to me and he passed one to Jeremy. Wow, said Jeremy, looking at the pie. My dad never makes pie like this. It was at this point I panicked. I did not want Jeremy to eat enemy pie. He was my friend. I couldn't let him eat it. Jeremy, no, don't eat the pie. I think it's poisonous or something. Jeremy's fork stopped right before getting to his mouth. He crumpled up his eyebrows and he looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was a hero. If it's so bad, Jeremy asked, then why has your dad already eaten half of his pie? I turned to look, and sure enough, my dad was eating enemy pie. Good stuff, he mumbled through a mouthful. And that was all he said. I sat there watching them eat enemy pie for a second. Dad, was laughing. Jeremy was happily eating. Neither of them was losing any hair. Seemed safe enough, so I took a tiny bite. Enemy pie was delicious. After dessert, Jeremy rode his bike home, but not before inviting me to play on his trampoline in the morning. He said he could teach me how to flip. As for enemy pie, I still don't know how to make it, and I still wonder if enemies really do hate it, or if their hair falls out, or if their breath turns bad. But I don't think I'll ever get an answer because I just lost my best enemy. The end. So I came up with a couple questions that you might want to think about as we read Enemy Pie. So my first question, number one, why was Jeremy Ross on the enemy list? So do you remember he said that Jeremy Ross had struck him out in a baseball game and he had moved right next door to his best friend Stanley, and Jeremy had a birthday party and Stanley went. So it kind of comes to my next question, number two. What is the job of a pitcher on a baseball team? Right? So if Jeremy was the pitcher, his job was to try to strike someone out, right? And the batter is supposed to try to hit. And I wonder if Stanley was invited to the birthday party because Jeremy Ross just moved in. Stanley lived next door and he didn't know this boy yet. Number three, why was spending a day with Jeremy Ross part of the plan? So think about that. Number four, what do you think enemy pie is made of? Number five, if you created a recipe for friendship pie, what ingredients would you need? So those, again, are the 5 questions to think about. Why was Jeremy Ross on the enemy list? What is the job of a pitcher on a baseball team? Why was spending a day with Jeremy Ross part of the plan? What do you think enemy pie is made of? And if you created a recipe for friendship pie, what ingredients would you need? So this would be a great time, maybe if you're in the kitchen, you can look at recipes and you can maybe create a recipe just for friendship. So I'm wondering at the end of the book of Enemy Pie, when we were talking about the 11 traits, do you think that being a good friend maybe ended up being what Enemy Pie was about? I think it is. All right. So thank you for joining us. I hope that you enjoy Enemy Pie. It's one of my favorite books to read. Hopefully you can tell that I really enjoy reading it. And again, on the Fridays in April, we're going to spend time just sharing a book with you. And hopefully we'll talk about what trait, the 11 traits for Jacob, that it has to do with. I'm also wearing blue today and my blue pin because today is where blue for child abuse prevention, and April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So we would love for you to come back and look at our Facebook page and just make sure you're connected with our website, because we will be posting things related to preventing child abuse and connecting with children and how to reduce stress and just different things, because we really are so committed to creating a world where kids can grow up safe. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed Enemy